Begin the card Daf Mesech Yevamos Daf. Begin 21 lines down from the top of the Amid, where the Gemara is in the middle of a discussion regarding this Machlokes of Yechon or Shlakish, which was related to the halacha of our opening Mishnah here in this parak of Chalitza Yevimtiv, and then it says Mu'beres. If someone does Chalitza to Mu'beres and she miscarries, so retroactively she definitely needs to have Chalitza because there's no child. Question is, was Chalitza's Mu'beres Shema Chalitza or not? Does Machlokes of Yechon or Shlakish and Machlokes of Ayin Rabba and explaining the Machlokes, does it apply also to Bia or only to Chalitza? And the Gemara continues trying to bring supports to these different opinions of Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Just corresponds to Bekazach and the Cheskel Tzanim from the Daf Yomi that's joining for today's Daf. Something we discuss in today's Daf are a machlekes regarding Kinyan pairs. This is on Amid Beis. Regarding if someone has the rights to the utility, is that Kinyan Guvtami? Does that mean like you own the thing? Or Kinyan pairs left, it's not like you own the actual thing, you just have the utility. Grusha v'chalitza l'kayin. Biblically, grusha is forbidden to kayin. Chalitza rabbinically because it's similar to a grusha. Mu'beres menekes. If a woman is pregnant or nursing, when she leaves one man, one would have to wait a certain period of time before he marries that woman because of the situation that she's in. Now, as we said in the previous stuff, we had a machlokes about in Rav and how to learn the machlokes Rabbi Yevamos Daf. Abaye said the machlokes is only a chalitza mu'beres shema chalitza, but not bias mu'beres shema bia. He had learned because of a question that Bryce even agrees that if you're doing bia, that would be problematic, but chalitza would work. And Rabbi said no machlokes in both chalitza mu'beres shema chalitza and bias mu'beres shema bia. Now we brought a brisa that said in the regular case of Yibam, now once the Yibam does Yibam chalitza with one Yibam, so obviously then the tzara of the deceased brother released to marry any man. Now however the brisa quote unquote says Yibam to benim to mu'beres. What happens if someone does bia, does Yibam with the Yibam? Turns out she's pregnant. So the brisa said that the tzara cannot get married. That why could she not get married? It's because she has to wait until the child is born to determine if it's viable or not. Now why is that? So the reason has to explain depending on the machlekes that we just mentioned before. The first explanation, which according to Abai is according to both Rabbi and Shlakish, because again he holds by Bia, everyone agrees Bia is Mu'beres Leishma Bia. According to Rabbi, it will only be according to Rish Lakish. That says if the child's not viable, so then Chalitza Yibam is required. And Bia is Mu'beres Leishma Bia, according to everyone, so the tzara is not going to be released. And if Avlat Shel Kayama, so Chalitza Yibam was not required, so you're going to argue, okay, halachah for Reb Nashim, so the tzara should be allowed to marry because there's going to be a child over here. No, the child only exempts when he actually comes out to the world. And the second explanation was Rabbi according to Rabbi Yechanan that says you're right, although the possibility in Avlat Shel Kayama, Rabbi Yechanan would hold according to Rabbi, Bis Mu'beres Shema Bia, Yibam was valid and she released the tzara. However, the possibility that Avlat Shel Kayama, then there's not going to be Yibam. However, the blood is ain't put there, and therefore, that's why she has to wait. That's where our Gemara continues in the middle of this discussion, 21 lines down at the top of the Amid. Amr B'Lasa says, is it really true that you could have this teaching of Rish Lakish, which the Gemara assumes is the more Mechudshdige teaching, that a chalitza of a mu'beres is not going to be considered as chalitza, like not lo b'nesin, and we didn't learn it in the Mishnah. Where is the source for this halacha of Rish Lakish that if a woman gets chalitza when she was pregnant, even if she ends up miscarrying, that's not going to be a chalitza, nafek dok va'ashka. So they went out and they found, Reb Lazar found the following the Tanakh. Mishnah that could be a test of a base. Mishnah will be a source for the halacha of Rish Lakish. The Mishnah says, Isha shalach bala, a woman that her husband went without any children, b'tzarasa with her co-wife, they went overseas, and she stayed back home to take care of the nest. And this other wife who's going out gallivanting with the husband out and overseas. They came back and they told her, they went on to this cable car, and Meis Baalcha, your husband died. So Allah is a so she is not allowed to get married. Now the assumption right now is, even with chalitza, which is she can never get married to anyone, even l'shuk, and neither could you go ahead either or do yibum with the brother-in-law. Until she finds out, shemu mu'beres hitzarasa. Maybe that co-wife that went overseas for quite some time, a year or whatever it is, maybe she was pregnant. The one that went with the husband, because as Rashi says, the reason why it says hitzarasa, because let's say she heard that actually that co-wife was not pregnant, she could do yibum because she knows her husband didn't have any children. And we're not concerned that maybe the husband had married some other woman in Nizayam, and that's what the Mishnah teaches over there in Perek Isha. That's why it says hitzarasa, Shem bears hitzarasa. Only that co-wife that's already married, we're concerned that maybe she became pregnant, but we wouldn't have to be concerned for another one. So Rabbi Lazar explains like this. I understand that Mishnah that says Shinal do Yibum because Shemi Yehiv La Bekayama. Maybe the co-wife is pregnant, and maybe it's going to have a viable child. And of course you can't do Yibum then because V'yivka be'is eishes after Raisa. You can't be with a brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is a biblical violation of eishesach. It's only when there's no child. There might be a child because of the co-wife. And Lui Tachlitz, but why are you telling me that she cannot get married? Neither. Why not? Why can't you do, rather, that you cannot do chalitza to get married? Amai, if chalitza's muberes is considered chalitza the way Rabbi Yochanan holds, so do chalitza v'manavshach. Whether the tzara is pregnant or she's not pregnant, either way chalitza can let you go. If she's not pregnant, for shlitza chalitza is going to work. And if she is pregnant, okay, it's chalitza muberes, you hold the shema chalitza. So obviously you see, now like Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara explains a little bit further. I understand that you would tell me that to do chalitza within 9 months of when he died, and they get married within 9 months, that you wouldn't be able to do because I know suffix. That is the suffix that maybe the child of the co-wife was a viable child, and we had mentioned before on this daf from higher up on this amid that from the previous daf on the top of this amid that Bia Chalitza does not exempt, it's going to be the child. Meaning when there is a child, it's just in utero, it's not going to be Bia Chalitza that's going to exempt because there's no situation of Yibum. I know love, there is a baby here, but the problem is the baby only exempts once it's born because it has to be Yaslav Oilam. So I could understand why you wouldn't be able to get married within 9 months of when the husband died. But why can't you do chalitza within the 9 months? And then let this remaining wife who stayed back home get married after 9 months.
If it gets born as a nefel, is the chalitza the vit and that another chalitza?
Oh, so that was the machlekes.
So
that's machlekes Yevamos Daf.
So for this we are also maybe choishes because if that's going to be a nefel, then the chalitza is not.
And that's exactly the point. That's the question we're asking under Rabbi Yochanan. If you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, the manavshach, if the tzara was pregnant and miscarried, or if she wasn't pregnant at all, so you did a chalitza. And if the child is a viable child, so if you're waiting till after 9 months to get married, so then the child's already born. Obviously, because we're concerned that maybe the tzara, maybe the co-wife was pregnant at the time of doing chalitza, and maybe the child's not going to be viable. And that chalitza is not going to exempt, like Rish Lakish, because if she's pregnant, you cannot do chalitza at that time because we say ayin alav. So you see, like Rish Lakish from this Mishnah, left Kofi Testament base, says the Gemara, no, it's not a good raya. According to your reasoning, every time the reason why they cannot do chalitza is because maybe she's pregnant, the co-wife at the time of the chalitza. So fine, I understand why you wouldn't be able to do chalitza within the 9 months to get married after 9 months. But tachletz v'tenasi la'achar tes. But Mamanav you should be able to do chalitza and get married after 9 months where now for sure she's not pregnant and you can get married. So why are you saying that, nope, this woman can never do yibum or get married until she finds out, even after 10, 20 years or whatever, until she finds out? Why? That wouldn't be difficult according to everyone. Even if you hold chalitzas moberas, loishmo chalitza, like Rosh Hashanah trying to bring a raya, good. So I understand 6 months after he died, you wouldn't be able to do chalitza to then get married 10 months after he died. And you're asking, you should be able to do chalitza within like 3 months or whatever right away, and then get married a year later, months so this should work. Fine, but according to Shlakish, you also shouldn't have to wait for 100 years until you find out. Either way, after 9 months, it's already one way or the other, so what would be the problem? So therefore said it's not a raya. Rather, from that Mishnah you cannot infer to support Rish Lakish. Because this that we said in the Mishnah, that you cannot do chalitza within 9 months and get married after 9 months. The reason is not because of a suffix of Yevamos Daf. It's not because of what you wanted to say, oh yeah, but you're running into the problem. Maybe she has a chib of yibum, she'll not get married to anyone else. No. Rather, it's because of the Abaye bar Abba, Rav Chinna bar Abaye Damitavayu, that they both said the following halacha, is that Shem Yehei Vlad, maybe the child of the co-wife is going to be Ben Kayama, it's going to be a viable child. Comes out, if you did chalitza, you did chalitza unnecessary. And therefore, this woman really is kosher for a kohen, because it wasn't really a chalitza, it was a ma'aseh b'alma. Now the thing is, whoever's going to see the chalitza is going to presume that she's invalid for kahuna. And when nimtza comes out, you can require an announcement that people should know. You should know that this woman is not invalid for a kohen through her chalitza, because it was not a valid chalitza. That's why we don't let you do a chalitza within that time period, because we don't want people to get confused. So they're going to say, what's the problem? So good, go ahead, do chalitza just in case. And if you find out that that it was unnecessary, so then you'll make an announcement and say it was unnecessary. Says no, there might be someone who was there at the chalitza ceremony, but was not there at the announcement, and then this woman's going to get married to a kohen. People are going to be able to say kasher chalitza l'kohen. Oh, chalitza to get married to a kohen because they weren't there at the announcement. So for that concern, that's why we don't let you do this chalitza misafa, because you can end up finding out that there really was a vlad shalkim. So meaning it's not forever, but it's talking about that at least for the interim. That's one part. But additionally, the Gemara rejects the raya for another reason. Normally, Abaye says midulei tachas v'litzayam gitani. You added on words to the Mishnah over there. Did it say that she cannot do chalitza or yibum until they find out what happened with the kohen? That you want to infer to support for Shlokish? No, the words are loitinasi loitizam gitani. What does that mean? It means she cannot get married. I mean, she cannot do yibum for shteitza. Of course, she cannot do, because if there is a child, then you're being over there say shach. When we said you cannot get married, you were reading it. You cannot get married at all. And you were saying there was beloy chalitza, meaning it's beloy chalitza. I mean, that's what it means to say. I mean, you'll rely and you'll say, oh, must have been my co-wife gave birth to my husband, and we're not going to say that even though most women give birth. In other words, what we're saying over here is that it doesn't say you cannot do chalitza and yibum. You're saying that it only says it means without doing chalitza. But if he did chalitza even within 9 months, you're right. It wouldn't be permitted after 9 months, because they could say like a biyachana that the biyah of a muberes or chalitza would be considered a biyah chalitza. I mean, you were reading it wrong. You were reading it by saying that loitinase just meant to get married without. I mean, you would presume that a child is being born. I mean, that you were saying neither one. You can't do a yibum because maybe there's a baby, and neither can you say that that there's not a baby. You cannot not do either one. That's what Allah was saying, but it wasn't saying it with chalitza. If you do chalitza in the chalamet, then you can be able to do it. Now, however, says the Gemara, Tani Gava say to Rish Lakish, but the Ma'aser Rebbe Brisa supports like Rish Lakish. Brisa says, Achilas moberas behepila. Someone does chalitza to a pregnant woman and she miscarries. It says clearly like Rish Lakish, chalitza mnach, and she would still require chalitza from the brothers. Again, that's what Rish Lakish said. That's leishmi chalitza. So that supports Rish Lakish's opinion from a Brisa. And actually, Omar Rabbi, the Rabbi says, Hilchas HaKavah Rish Lakish b'anei klas. Halacha, although we follow like a B'yichanan, in the following three halachas we say like Rish Lakish. Which are the three? So Chada, first of all, is Hada Amaran. Number one is the one we just said, the Chalitza Muberes, Lishma Chalitza. If the woman miscarries at the end, and you had done Chalitza, that the halacha is that's not a valid Chalitza. And Idach did not. The second one is what we learned in the Mishnah Baba Basra. Mishnah says, let's say somebody is distributing his assets orally, in other words, and not just with a regular Yerusha when he's quiet and just when he passes away, it goes as the Torah says. No, here he's orally saying, he's saying this one should get more, this one should get less, or although generally the firstborn gets a double portion, no, he's saying that the firstborn should get as equal as everyone else. So it says the Mishnah, Darav Kayamin, his words are valid because he's giving it all in his lifetime, and there's no inheritance for the firstborn to take a double portion, and that everyone else has to take equal. That whoever gives more, he gives more, and whoever gives less, he gives less too. Now, but let's say he says it in the terminology of inheritance. He says, oh, Reuben, you should yarshin that field, and Sarah, you should get that field. Oh, then says the Mishnah Loimakum. Then he hasn't said anything. Why? Because he's being masna mashakaz b'Torah. He's stipulating in contradiction to what the Torah says, and his stipulation is null and void because he didn't give the regular brothers equal and for the first one double because he said a terminology of Yerusha, and the halacha of Yerusha says that it's got to be a certain way. Now, but let's see, Kasavi writes, Bein B'tchila, whether in the beginning of his document he writes that this field should be given to that person and he should inherit it. So the opening words is tinasing. Or let's say bein b'seif, or whether at the end. So let's say he writes yarsha b'tinasing. So he says a terminology of giving at the end. Or bein b'emtza, whether in the middle. He says yarsha b'tinasing b'yarsha. So if he writes in anywhere, beginning, the middle, or the end, mishumatana, a terminology of gifting, then the Rav Kayam, and then his words are going to be available, because since ultimately in that document he wrote a terminology of gifting, then it's going to be effective even though he writes also a terminology of Yerusha, that person will be kind. Now, as you continue to Medbei, Yevamos Daf, and Rav said, which Rashi explains, Rav is not disagreeing with that Mishnah. Rather, he's, in Perek Yeshneichel, there's a Machlekes Amaram, how to infer from that Mishnah. Because when Ravin came, he said that if, let's say, someone says, Yarish Pliny saw the Pliny, let Reuven Yarish in that field, and V'tinasin started playing, let Shimon get that field. That should be given to him. So by one brother he said Lashon Yerusha, one he said Lashon Matana. So Rabbi Yechanan says, then the one who even said Lashon Yerusha is going to be kind of. Why? Because he explains the Mishnah like that. As long as somewhere in that Shtar Tzava, in that will, he wrote somewhere a terminology of gifting to one of them, so all of them are considered as a gift. And even the brother that says Yerusha, even though it's not like the halachas of Yerusha, it's going to work. That Rosh Hashanah is saying, no. The one who has the terminology of Yerusha is not going to be kaina, because we say that no, this one was a matana, this one is Yerusha. Until he says, Pliny, Yerusha said the Pliny is a Pliny. Until he says that person and that person should inherit that field and that field, should nesatim lehem bebatana b'Yerushim that I gave to them as a gift and they inherited. Where then at least, even though he's saying Lashon Yerusha, but as long as Lashon Matana is going on both of them, only then will it work as in contradiction to the laws of inheritance. And that's what we're saying. For that halacha too is what we're saying. The halacha is like Rish Lakish, that you have to have both of them having the terminology matana on them. And v'idach, what's the third halacha? Nan also we learned in Mishnah Baba Basa. It says hakoisem kol nechasim lebenai. Someone writes off all his assets to his son now, la'achar moisei, but that it should be for after his death. Meaning he's writing what's called mehayoim la'achar misa, saying it's from today, but it should take effect only after he dies. Now, therefore, the father really doesn't have the principal anymore because it's not his. He already gave it over to his son. But he gets to have the utility. He's the buying back, he gets to use it. I mean, the son owns it, but the father gets to have its utility, what's called kinyan of the payers. So the halach is like this. So the father cannot sell it anymore. He already gave it to his son. But the son cannot sell it because it's in the father's domain, because the father gets the utility. Now, what happens in Macharav? Let's say the father did sell it. So Mechurin, so it's sold that the consumer, that the purchaser, the buyer can utilize it as long as the father's alive, where he merits whatever the father had. The father had the utility, so now this buyer could buy it at Shemasu until the father dies. When the father dies, then it goes to the son. Machra ben, let's say the son sells it, and then the buyer has nothing until the father dies, because even though the principal is being sold, but for utility, the father has all utility. That's what the Mishnah says in Baba Basa. Now, Vidma, we learned, what's a machar haben b'chaya? What happens if the son sold it when the father was still alive? Umeis haben b'chayav, and now the son died when the father is still alive. So you have machlekes. Rabbi Yechanan says loikan l'kech. Says the consumer, the buyer, has not purchased anything, even when subsequently the father dies. Whereas Rish Lakish says no kan l'kech. No, the buyer has acquired it after the father dies, as the Gemara explains the machlekes. Yevamos says, the buyer has not bought anything, because kinyan payr is the acquisition of the utility, of the produce, which the father had in these assets, is kikinyan haguftami, is like the ownership of the actual principal. And therefore what the son sold is invalid, is moot point, because he didn't sell anything. Meaning, as Rashi explains, the Mishnah said that the consumer doesn't have anything until the father dies, but it sounds like when the father dies, he does get it. What do you mean? I thought he didn't sell anything. Father had kinyan payers. What's the son selling? So that's a principle that when the father dies, when the son is still alive, and therefore subsequently the matana of the father is going to take effect to the son, so there's halacha, kol ma shemacha rishon l'sheni, Whatever the first person sells to the second person, it's called chusha tavali other. Anything that he's going to end up getting from this, the buyer already gets. So since the son is going to get it, because the father died first, so the one who bought it from him, even though 10 years ago, will ultimately get it. But if the son dies first, then it's not tavali other, because the son's never going to get the gift, because he's dead before the father's dead. And therefore, even if the father subsequently dies, that buyer is not going to get anything, because the son didn't have anything. He has nothing to sell. The kinyan peretz is a kinyan guf. The only reason why it works in the case of the Mishnah is because ultimately he's going to get the kinyan peretz when the father dies. So then he's going to get it. So whatever he's going to get, the buyer's going to get. But when he doesn't end up getting because he dies beforehand, so then the buyer doesn't have anything. He didn't sell him anything. That's Rabbi Yechon holds. For Shlomo somebody says no kamlikach. No, the buyer did acquire. Because kinyan peretz is not getting a good dummy. The father's right to the utility is not considered like as if he owns the property itself. It's like the son owns it, and therefore when the son sells it, even if he dies when the father's still alive, when the father ultimately dies, then the buyer will get it. And that's the third thing that we say. The halacha is like Rish Lakish and not like Rabbi Yechon. Continuing halacha the Mishnah, we said that if let's say someone does yibum, his kindness is yivimta. Does yibum, it turns out, oh, hey, she's pregnant, but no one realized that. So then the halacha is, if let's say it turns out that the child's not viable at the end, it's an unhealthy pregnancy and the child doesn't make it, so then okay, you kayim, then you can stay married to the woman. Ultimately, it turns out it was a good yibum, even though she was pregnant. Now, but we learned the brisa that we didn't learn in the Mishnah, in the name of a different Tanner. As they said, no, yoitzi beget. Rabbi Elazar disagrees with the seif of our Mishnah. And when the child is not kayama, it's a miscarriage, he holds that no, still we penalize him, and he has to divorce her with a get, because ultimately this person had entered into a suffix isser eshesach. So now retroactively to reveal that it was a good yibum, but we have to go ahead and you have to divorce the woman. Now, as Rashi points out, you divorce her with a get without chalitza, because obviously it is a valid yibum. But just we penalize rabbinically, you say no, you have to give a get. You can't stay married because you did this wrong thing of entering into Sabak Eshes Ach. Now, Amar Rabba, so Rabba makes the following comment. And he says, Remeya, Rabbi Eliezer, Amar Dora Echad. Where we're going to find that Remeya also penalizes someone who gets married to his friend's pregnant wife, ex-wife, and then you have to divorce her too. What's this same halacha? So Rabbi Eliezer is Hadamar. We just said Rabbi Eliezer is this halacha that where the woman was pregnant from his brother, the halacha is that you have to go ahead and divorce her. So Remeir is a similar halacha. Time we learned the brisa, a very different context, but a similar halacha. Let's say a woman, her husband died. Now Nebuch, she was pregnant or she was just nursing. She had a young little family, and the halacha is she not get married until 24 months pass, because that's how long the child has to nurse. So if she's pregnant or nursing, that a person is not allowed to marry that woman. Now, Vim Nasef, let's say he did violate this law and marry the woman. So Yaitzi V'Layagzai Lamas Remeir holds he has to divorce her and he's not allowed to remarry her forever. The Chacham say no, Yaitzi, divorce her. When it comes time that she could be married, which end of 24 months, then you can marry her. So you see that Remeir is the same as Rabbi Eliezer, where if you violate the halacha of the pregnant woman, that you're not supposed to marry her. In our context, it's regarding that of Eshazach, Safek Eshazach, and regarding there, it's the problem about the woman not being able to continue nursing and taking care of her child, and you're marrying her, and it's going to cause some type of a problem for the child. So then, we also make you divorce there too. So similar to halachas about marrying a pregnant woman, that we make you divorce her forever. So that's what Rabba wanted to say, that they're saying the same idea. To which only Abaya says, no, not necessarily. You can differentiate between either one of them. Mimai, where do you get this? Dimalahi, maybe it's not the same halacha. Ad kan lekam Rabbi Eliezer halacha. Where do we find Rabbi Eliezer over here in the halacha of our Mishnah that he has to divorce her forever, even though it turns out it was really a good yibum? In other words, he was lenient to enter into a suffix of a biblical violation of a brother's wife that has children. Maybe it's going to be Vlad Shal Kayam, so then we penalize him. Over there, the whole issue is D'Rabbanan. It's only rabbinic, because this halacha of not marrying the pregnant wife is not a biblical halacha. It's a rabbinic halacha because we don't want anything happening to the baby. So therefore, K'Rabbanan really, maybe Rabbi Eliezer would hold like D'Rabbanan with a Nalik Remeir, and would hold that, no, after the 24 months is over, although you married her originally forbidden, you would be able to take her back. And that's one way. Then you could say Inam, you could say the other way too. Where do we find over there a mayor that says that if you married a pregnant wife of your friend that died, that you would have to divorce her forever? That's to the contrary, I can tell you. Because it's a rabbinic violation of marrying your friend's pregnant wife, and you're disgraceful regarding the rabbinic law. They made their halach more stringent than biblical law, because we don't want people to be lax about it, because it's only rabbinic. And therefore we penalize them so that a person doesn't come to do the same thing. Over here regarding a Yevama who's pregnant, that's a midrash, that's a biblical violation of an Eishazach. Mifresh Parshim, and people would separate. We don't have to penalize that someone else shouldn't do that because no one would want to come to violate his midrash. Never says Abai. It's not necessarily like Rava, like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Meir are saying the same thing. Now, qualifying what we mentioned before, Ahmed Rava says, we were mentioning Rabbi Meir in that machlokes, but according to once we bring this in Talmudic style, we then discussed that was brought in. According to the Chacham who said that, okay, when the 24 months are over, and you can marry this formerly pregnant nursing woman, then you let her marry. Now, however, up until that time, says Rava, he explains, when they said you have to release her, it means it's a get. It's not just enough to separate and live in different homes in different places. You actually have to give a literal divorce from this woman that you were not allowed to marry. Now, Almasar, he says, Dekinami, it's precise also because Iktoni will learn in that Mishnah that it says, the Chacham said, Yoitzi, you have to let her go. Like Tony Yavra doesn't say separate. Obviously it's not just a separation, it's an actual divorce that has to be done. Now, based on this halachic qualification of Rava, the Gemara has the following question. And because we want to mention hachamai, we mention a different halacha that will relate back to this halacha. Amalei Rav Shloimy David says Hasan Tzna. It's actually a brisa. We learned somewhere else. Rabbi Shloimy that he says, Kol sheshah ba'adam lamed yoyim. Any child that survives for a period of 30 days from when he's born, so then the halacha is ein neifel. We don't consider this child as a miscarriage, and therefore that's what we're picking by when we say ba'adam. If you want to say the seifa regarding an animal, it's 8 days. That's what the beginning of the brisa says we're talking about a human being. But what do we mean to say it's not a neifel? So let's say the baby dies in day 37 from when he's born. Doesn't make a difference. It's considered that it was a baby, and that will exempt the mother from having to do chalitza. Now, the diak is haloisha. If the baby didn't survive and died within 30 days from birth, so then sveka. It's a doubt. You don't know was this a viable child or not. I mean, it could have died from some SIDS or whatever, something different. We don't really know. So Allah is you have to do chalitza and you cannot do yibum. Now, Rashi just points out, someone had mentioned this the other day, that specifically if we're not sure if the baby was born full term. But if we know if the baby was born full term, said the Mishnah teacher needed of Gimel Beis, that a baby even 1 day old will exempt from yibum. Just what we're saying, after 30 days, we don't know if it's a full term or not, so we don't know if it's a viable child or not. After 30 days, we consider it yes. Within 30 days, we don't know. So then you would have to have chalitza and not do yibum. That's what the Brisa says. Now, Be'idma, we learned on that, if Meis, so let's say the son of the Yevama dies b'toich lamanyer, within 30 days. So we're saying that's a case of suffering. And then ba'amdav in iskatsha, this woman went ahead, she got up, she got engaged to someone else because she presumed that she's pater because she had a child, and she got engaged to someone else. So Ravina, Mishmei de Rav Amma, so Ravina in the name of Rava says that in Eishes Yisrael, if she was married to a regular Yisrael, I mean the one who she got engaged with was Yisrael, where if she would do chalitza from the Yavam after the Kedushin, it wouldn't make her forbidden on the husband. So I mean, because of the suffix, you would go ahead and you would do chalitza. If let's say the one who got engaged to her is a kain, where if she's going to subsequently have chalitza, she's mechalutza, she's forbidden to that man that she got engaged to, then the chalitzas. Then the chalitza, you rely on the fact that the child was a viable child, which therefore that permitted her to be mutaris l'shor because there was no mitzvah yibum. That's one point. Now, Rav Misharsha Mishmei Rav, that was Ravina name of Rav. Rav Misharsha name of Rav, he says no, achazu chalitzas. Either case, you have to go ahead and do chalitza. I don't care if she got engaged to a kohen. You have a suffix, a yevama l'shor. Maybe it was not a viable child. Maybe she needs to have chalitza, and therefore you have to do chalitza. So I'm Ravina Mashasha. So we have this machlekes Amaram. What did Rava say? So Ravina, who said that she could stay with the kohen without chalitza, said to Mashasha, as you think that Lamazayim and Alf. He says, "Oi, but we're telling Rabbi Hachi at the night shiur, night seder. Rava had said, like you said, that you always have to do chalitza because the night you don't know it's a suffix. Yevamos Daf, you have to do chalitza even if she was engaged to a kohen, and even though that was to make a forbidden on the kohen. It's Safra Hadabeh, you weren't there by the Chazar Sashir. In the morning, the early Kail, he got up and he said that no, you don't have to do chalitza. She was engaged to the kohen. So he says to Ravina, he says, Shalitu, you can permit this woman to stay with this kohen without doing chalitza? You rather let it be the will, the tishtiru of tarba, that you permit even chaylim, even forbidden fat. He's like going on. He's like, really? You're a mater? Okay, go ahead. Permit even chaylim. Okay, but that's their machlekes. But one thing concludes the Gemara. So this is going back to Ravashi, who was asking Rabbi Shloimy of Idi the question. He was asking a question. He was saying, we learned over there, up until he was just quoting that context. And now he wants to bring it back to our sugya. He says, okay, so hacha over here. We said regarding if you have a pregnant woman from the person who just died, or she was nursing. You told me that even the Rabbanan hold that it's a temporary divorce that has to be done up until the 24 months are over. So, but what happens if she would get married to a kohen? What would the halacha be? The question is, in the Avid Rabbanan Takant l'kohen, does the Rabbanan make a takana for the kohen? Meaning that even though for Yisrael you need to have that she's divorced with a get until the time comes, like the Chacham said, but maybe over there, when the time comes, he could remarry her. But over here, where he's going to divorce her, he's not going to be able to remarry her, maybe it would be enough to separate oiloi or not. Meaning it's similar to that machlekes we had regarding this, what did Rava say? When it's regarding a kohen, maybe we're not machmer, maybe you would say the same thing over here. When she got married to a kohen, we wouldn't be machmer because you tell me you're allowed to remarry her, it's just a rabbinic penalty. Maybe we wouldn't do it when she's married to a kohen. So he responded to Rav Ashi, he says, no, how can you compare these two halachas? Bishlam Mahas, we understand over there that, yes, Ravina had said that was Rava's ultimate decision. That you wouldn't have to do chalitza afterwards if she was engaged to a kohen. You know why? Because you only quoted half the bryce over there. Rabbi Shloimy was the one who said that if the baby dies within 30 days, we're not so sure it's not a nafel. But even they could have on the plague of Rabbi Shloimy, there are the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Shloimy. That they say, even if the baby didn't last 30 days, it is a bona fide child. We're not mesupik. Oh, okay. So you already have other shittas of the Rabbanan. It's like even though we're machmir like B'Shem Gamliel, but Gabi Eish is kohen when she's engaged to a kohen. Kim the Levish is not possible to chalitza. So we do like the Rabbanan. We would rely on the vlad that it was a vlad ma'aliyah because there's other opinions to rely on. Will be here. Come on now, but who are you going to do like? If you're going like Remeir, Omar, but he says you have to divorce, you can never remarry. So for Shteitzach you would have to do chalitza. Vikar Rabbanan, and then it's like the Rabbanan, Amri beget. They say you have to do a get at least for the moment being. So ultimately he answered. He says yes. It doesn't make a difference who she got married to. Of course you would have to divorce because there's no one to rely on. In that halacha, at least you have the Rabbanan to rely on. Now, Idma, just to finish off this conversation related to what we said, the Gemara brings that let's say Kadsha, let's say someone, regarding this discussion about penalizing someone to have to remove the wife, let's say he got engaged to any widow or a gerusha, b'toich shleisha, within 3 months, which we had said that a person is not supposed to marry a woman within 3 months of the death of a previous husband, because we said you have to have chana, you have to be able to differentiate to know who the paternity of the child is. But let's say he gets engaged with Baruch, and then he flees. He's a fugitive. He's on the run. He runs out of town. So then we have Pligi Bar Ravacha Barafim. We have Machlekes. Chanama, one says Meshamtina, we put him in Chayrim until he divorces her, because we said you have to divorce her. You can't be married to a woman within 3 months. Chanama, the other one says, no, Eruka Mishayeh. The fact that he fled actually helps him. We don't have to force him to write a get, because he obviously revealed his intention that he's not going to go ahead and consummate this relationship until the time, because he actually ran off. And there was such a story. Rafa said to them, the fact that he fled is helping him. In other words, you don't have to force him to divorce or to put him in chayim, because the whole point was, about we have to know who the paternity of the child is, but he ran away here anyways. It's obviously showing us, indicating that he doesn't plan on to consummate this relationship. So even though he violated this law, but we're not going to run into problems anyway, and we don't have to put him into chayim. Thank you to anything for hosting us.